Yahoo, Jake Hari, and Adam Scher here to break down this 6 game main slate. We've got one game before. We can talk about that, or we don't really have to. I think there's only Showdown for that. I don't believe it's included in either of the FanDuel or DraftKings slate, but I believe Yahoo will have a slate for it. Adam, how you doing? How was your weekend?
Doing good. Weekend was relaxing. Uh, Mother's Day was nice and everything. How was your weekend?
It was good. Yeah, same here. Relaxing. Except my legs are killing me. I ran the 5K for breast cancer awareness and then walked it. So the legs hurt. I'm not used to running forward or just forward without any cutting. Like I like playing basketball and stuff, but yeah, I'm just really
Yeah.
sore. So probably won't leave this chair today. Um,
Yeah, that's my normal day, and it has nothing to do with having run a 5K.
yeah, yeah. I told myself after the first one that it was my first and last, but I keep getting sucked
Yeah.
into doing it again. So it's for a good cause, I guess. I can be sore for one day out of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about this slate? Do you like these mid-sized slates, these 6 gamers like this?
Yeah, I've actually had pretty decent success in them this year. Normally, I prefer like the 8 to 10 gamers, but I've actually done good on 5 and 6 gamers. So hopefully that continues. I think this one in particular is just kind of weird because there's so much good pitching.
Yeah, I was looking at the guys last night and got a lot of volatile guys. It looks like you got Peacock and Bieber and Robbie Ray, Nola. So yeah, I mean we're not. It's not maybe like last week when we did the show where it was like literally 10 studs, just pick your favorite guy and go. Um, but yeah, it looks like we're gonna have to make some pretty tough decisions on this slate. So
Yeah,
what's that?
Yeah, no, I was agreeing with you. I think it's going to be pretty wide open as far as like offenses go too. Like there's probably going to be a couple that, blow up because there are 12 offenses going, but you don't look at any of the starters really and think, "Oh, this is where you're going to get 12 runs from."
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I'm feeling today. So as always, ownership's going to play a big role. It's going to be pretty concentrated because there are only 6 games. Uh, but if you want a little bit of some easier competition, make your way on over to Yahoo. They have a MLB 10K guaranteed with 2K to first, 10 entry max on Yahoo. There's less sharks. You won't see a ton of the guys like Osmo, Tom, Eddie from our site. But you have flyer payouts, no CSV edit, so the pros can't just quickly enter in lineups. You do have to do some hand building work, and some people forego that because the tournaments aren't huge, but they are profitable. So I think we both agree with that. I'll definitely be playing some on Yahoo tonight. Gonna play the $10, probably that $5 as well, and then some of these single entry stuff. What's your favorite things about Yahoo, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, you named it. Just the fact that you're playing against 10 max lineups, so you don't need to be perfect to win a tournament, as like you do on other sites. And the payout structure is just so much better than you get on other sites. I mean, speaking personally, right now I'm in the middle of a huge downswing, and it's just so hard to break out of those on other sites because you basically have to win a tournament to have a profitable day because you can come in 30th out of 15,000 people and like double your money. But on Yahoo, the payout structures are flatter. The fields are smaller, not 150 entry max. It's just much less volatility and, obviously much easier to take down those tournaments, especially like you said, when you're not competing against all the best players.
Yeah, and we actually talked about some different strategies on Friday when Josh and I did the Yahoo specific strategy show, and Alex Osimo Baker jumped on, and we talked about kind of some 6 man stacking because you can do that on Yahoo. You can't do that on DraftKings and FanDuel. So if you just like going in on a team and just playing 2/3 of their lineup, Yahoo is for you, especially on bigger slates where you are looking more for outlier performances, or at least it's more likely that outlier performances will happen with 30 teams on the slate rather than 12 teams like we have tonight. So we talked more specific Yahoo strategy on that show. It was, what was that, the 10th, Friday, May 10th. So if you guys want to go back and watch that, the last 15 minutes, Alex jumped on, and there were some pretty interesting conversations going on. So
Yeah, I don't. You might know. I don't remember now, but Bale's book when he wrote it, back when you could 6 man stack on DraftKings, that was the optimal stack size, right?
Yep, it was.
Like,
I can't remember. It's called the ML. I can't even remember what it's called. I remember reading it on a plane the whole way there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good book. I mean, if you guys haven't read those and you're just like a beginner or you want a refresher on DFS, those are actually some really helpful books, and just kind of like there's numbers behind them. It's not just like, all right, 6-man strategy is the best because I won so much money. There's actually some math behind those, so definitely would recommend checking those out. Definitely would recommend playing on Yahoo today. We will be referring to some Yahoo pricing, some DraftKings, some FanDuel. We'll be all over the map on this show today. Let's start it out with the Brewers and the Phillies. We believe it's going to be Freddie Peralta going up against Aaron Nola. Whether or not Peralta starts the game is kind of the question here. He's just 7K on DraftKings. The Brewers with a 3.9 implied total. The Phillies with a 4.7 implied total. What do you see here, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, pitching in this game, obviously two very difficult matchups, two pitchers that offer some upside. Nola, in particular, I have right now slightly ahead of the rest of the field as the number one pitching option. But it's a really tough matchup, and we have seen Nola have some issues this year, so it's not like I think he's a slam dunk player or anything like that. It's just that I have him, slightly ahead of everyone else. I don't see any real reason to think that he continues to struggle going forward. I think that, the remainder of the season is probably better than the first part has been for Nola. But again, it's a really dangerous matchup against Milwaukee. It's a park that plays up strikeouts, but also plays up home runs. So if you get Nola at, less than the top of his game, he can run into a lot of trouble. And then on the other side with Peralta, a really difficult Phillies team that drives up pitch counts, has good hitters top to bottom. I mean, you have Michael Franco normally hitting 8th in this lineup. So it's a deep lineup, but you do get a discounted price tag on him, which is pretty appealing. They said he's going to start. I don't know if that's actually the case or not. It would seem kind of weird just because they specifically moved him to the long relief role last game because he has such terrible numbers in the first inning in his career compared to the rest of the game. He had success in that role, so it would be kind of weird to just throw him back into the, as the starter if you believe that that's actually been an issue for him. But counsel said he would start, so I assume he's going to start.
Just seems so weird, even like mentally for the guy. Like he's had trouble in the first innings. Like just let him, sit one inning and come in and face Odubel Herrera in the second inning or something like that, instead of like we were talking about before the show, McCutchen, Segura, Harper, Hoskins, Real Muto.
Right.
It's just, I don't know, just let him start off with some easier at bats. It just seems so logical.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like I don't even necessarily buy into like first inning struggles or whatever, but if counsel thought that was the problem last start and pushed him back to the second inning and it worked, why is he just suddenly like, okay, go ahead, McCutchen, Harper, Hoskins, have at him?
Do they just not have an opener fresh enough? They just, I mean, that would be the only
that's
thing.
Possible, I guess. I don't know how yesterday's game went. I'm trying to refresh my bullpen stuff now.
I wasn't able to play at all yesterday. I was with the family basically all day, so.
Gotcha. They were like an island game, so they weren't on the slate. So I have no idea.
Oh yeah, they played. Wait, did they play the Cubs last night? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, and their bullpen's not in terrible shape. They only used one reliever yesterday. Adrian Hauser threw 36 pitches yesterday.
Okay.
But they could have. I mean, that's normally their opener. I guess maybe that could be the issue, but I don't know if they could have someone else thrown in.
Yeah, I don't really mind either of these guys. I think it's a pretty volatile spot for Nola. And you kind of answered my question I was going to ask you next. Are you worried about Nola at all? We saw some early season struggles. Had a really nice start last time out. And then I like to just look at the team numbers versus the handedness of pitching they're going up against. The Brewers have been surprisingly pretty average. Active roster striking out at 26.3%, which is tied for first with the Tigers. Just a 94 WRC plus, ISO of 175. Like, it's good, but not great. A 320 on base percentage. So I just expected them to be near the top against both righties and lefties. And I guess that hasn't really been the case in most statistics so far for the Brewers. So maybe that's why you're seeing the 3.9 implied total. A lot of respect to Nola coming from Vegas here. Any specific hitters you're looking at on either side?
So, I mean, obviously Christian Yelich, but beyond that, you have a really, really nice price tag on Travis Shaw, who his price just keeps dropping. He's down to $2,600 on DraftKings. I don't really care how much he struggled this year or how tough the matchup is. That's a really good price tag on a 6-game slate for a hitter who has the track record that Shaw does. So he really stands out. Getting to Bryce Harper at 4,400. Peralta is, if you go back and look at his minor league numbers, he's basically been lights out to righties and struggles more with lefties. So while I don't have any issue getting to the right-handed bats in Philadelphia as well, just because they're so good and Peralta's so volatile, if I were singling someone out, getting Bryce Harper at 4,400 or getting Herrera at 3,700 are both pretty appealing.
Yeah. And some cheap prices on Yahoo as well for these guys. Shaw, min salary, $7 against Nola. And then Harper under 20, he's at 18. McCutchen at 15. Odubel Herrera also at $7. So there's definitely some value on hitters here if you're not going to either of these pitchers. Anything you see from ownership that's sticking out? I mean, we do have Nola at the highest owned pitcher right now at over 40%. Edging out Robbie Ray and Shane Bieber, but it looks like the hitters are pretty under control as far as ownership goes. You see anything that sticks out to you from that perspective?
Nola, I don't have Nola projected higher than everyone else by a wide enough margin that I expect to be like jamming over the field. If he comes in at 40 or 50%, I would think that I'm around there or a little bit under, and then getting overweight on some of the lower owned guys. It's not a slate where I don't view the slate the way that I did yesterday with Blake Snell or the day before that with Jacob deGrom, where I just had someone as like the clear number one. And even though he was going to be 40%, I was happy just like shoving 90 to 100%. That's not how I view Nola here. So if, by the time we get to lock, if Nola is still projected to be the highest owned pitcher between 40 and 50%, I'd be kind of surprised if I get over that.
Yeah, he's the highest exposed guy, or he's top 2 across all 3 sites. So I wasn't actually expecting to see that. I mean, I guess the good price on DK will do that at just 9,200 for a guy that was a stud all last season and is coming off a really good start. Same thing on Yahoo at just $47. He's second behind Robbie Ray, who is just 41. Anything
One
else?
thing to point out with Nola, he's still not getting swinging strikes. Even in that last start, he was at like 10.8%, which was his highest percentage since I think the first game of the season. But that's still really low for him. So, I guess that is still concerning. I'm trying to pull up the Baseball Savant leaderboard now to see where he comes in called strike plus swinging strike, because when you have a curveball like Nola, there's certainly a chance that he's just getting more called strikes, and that's why his swinging strikes are down. But the swinging strikes being down is a little bit scary still.
Steve in YouTube chat says, I don't understand the reasoning going to guys in obvious slumps. Do you have any rebuttal to that? Are you worried about that in general?
No, not at all, because you don't know when a slump is starting or ending. Like they obviously exist, but you can't really quantify when they start or stop. And in the case of, I assume that was talking about Travis Shaw, the price, like DFS really just comes down to price tags and getting as much upside into your lineups as you can in tournaments. And when someone like Travis Shaw is in a slump, his price tag drops, you're getting, the same for Harper, you're getting guys at price tags that are lower than their expected production going forward. And in baseball, there's so much variance and so much volatility in baseball that you don't want to look at like 1 month of someone and be like, oh, this guy isn't good now, whatever. Like Travis Shaw has such a long track record of being a very good hitter. There's an extremely good chance that by the end of the season, he's once again a really good hitter, over the course of the season, that his numbers bear that out. So it's kind of the best opportunity is to roster guys that haven't been hitting well and it's caused their price tag to drop, unless you think they're injured or something. Like unless you think they're injured or they went blind over the offseason or something like that, there's no real reason to think that Travis Shaw suddenly isn't going to hit baseballs well anymore. It's not like he is 40 years old or something like that. It's more likely that he's just in a slump, but you don't know when that starts or stops. And so you just get so much upside by getting guys like that into your lineup.
Yeah, you want to capitalize at a low ownership when he is going to break out of that slump. That doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be tonight. It doesn't mean it's going to be tomorrow. But when he does, and he does start hitting the ball very well again, which we expect to happen, like you're going to capitalize in a big way if the guy's at low ownership. I mean, we saw it with Chris Davis. He broke out of the, 0 for 50 slump, 3 for 4 with like 5 RBI. I mean, he broke the slate that day, and no one played him, and he was free. So, I don't know. This kind of thing happens all the time in baseball. I just wanted to bring it up because it's something we get sometimes in chat when we recommend guys that might be not hitting so well lately.
Yeah, and also people think the same way as the person that asked that question. So you actually get, and you mentioned it with Chris Davis. Not saying it'll be the case with Shaw today on a 6-game slate, but you get guys at decreasing price tags and decreasing ownership because of recency bias. And so, like worst case scenario, you're getting a value bat that takes a 0. Guys take 0 in baseball all the time. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it's not like it's not like basketball. Like you're not avoiding a 0 by rostering a better hitter than Travis Shaw. And you're opening up salary. So worst case, you get a 0 there, and you got better bats and better pitching in your lineup. Best case, Travis Shaw does what Travis Shaw has done for years and hits well.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good explanation. Got anything else?
I pulled up. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I got the numbers pulled up on called strike plus swinging strike percentage, and they are more optimistic for Nola. There have been 183 starting pitchers who have thrown at least 200 pitches this season. Nola ranks 18th out of those 183 in called strike plus swinging strike percentage. He is sandwiched between Jose Barrios and Trevor Bauer. So,
Nice.
Pretty good company there. A good called strike plus swinging strike percentage. So I'm not overly concerned about the swinging strikes anymore.
All right, I like it. Let's go to Houston and Detroit. We've got Brad Peacock going up against Matt Boyd. We have a 4.8 implied total going to Houston, 3.8 going to Detroit. Peacock, talk about a volatile guy. Last 4 starts, 2 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 2 strikeouts, and 12 strikeouts. Which Peacock do you think we're seeing today against the Tigers team that is tied for the major league lead in strikeout rate versus righties?
I'm expecting the good one. Peacock has always been much better against righties than lefties, and last start was a start against a right-handed heavy, whoever he faced, Kansas City. That was the game where they sat Alex Gordon for whatever reason, and you got one less left-handed bat in the lineup. Now you expect to get probably 6 righties from Detroit, with Goodrum, Stewart, and Candelario being the 3 lefties. Peacock has an 11.1% swing strike percentage against righties this year, 13.5% since the start of last season, but a .065 xISO allowed the righties since last year, 226 xISO allowed the lefties. Expected WOBA to righties is 223. He also made some adjustments last start, and I'm trying to find the tweet, but I'm probably not going to be able to do it in time. I think it was that he started throwing out of the windup more. I don't remember exactly what the change was, but there was something he started doing last start that was different, and also obviously had a great start. So that's something I'll be looking into more as the day goes on. But even if we assume no changes and that he's the pitcher he's been anyway, I really like the price tag and the matchup for him.
Yeah, hard not to like him here at just 8,500 coming off a huge start. I just think the swings and misses are going to be there for him, especially if they roll out a righty-heavy lineup, and they don't really have a choice. I mean, they've got those 3 lefties in there, but it's not like they're not going to play Castellanos, Cabrera, Rodriguez, Grenier, Jones, Harrison. Like at least 4 out or 5 of those guys, they're everyday players. So would expect a bunch of righties here for Peacock. He's $39 on Yahoo. I think he makes for an awesome play over there. And then 8,500 on DK. People want us to talk more FanDuel. He is also at $85 on FanDuel. Would he be an option you're looking at over there as well?
Yeah, he's priced closely to Nola, but he's still cheaper than Nola, Barrios, actually cheaper than Boyd by a lot over there.
And Bieber.
It basically, yeah, I mean he's $1,000 cheaper than Shane Bieber. He really actually stands out on FanDuel. You have Robbie Ray for $300 more. I think that you could certainly make an argument for Ray there, but I think that Peacock's in the better strikeout matchup against Detroit. So certainly like Peacock.
Yeah. All right. What about hitters here? Are we looking at? I mean, we like Peacock, but are we looking at Detroit as possible leverage here? Maybe some of these lefties, and then what about Boyd versus the Astros? 9,900 on FanDuel. On DK, it's a little bit easier to swallow at 8,800. But are you a believer in Boyd? I don't know if I've talked to you about him yet.
Yeah, I really am. He made some improvements last year. He throws the slider a lot more, gets a lot of swinging strikes on that. So far this year, amongst those pitchers that have thrown at least 200 pitches, and if we toss out Griffin Canning because he's made like 4 starts, if you look at called strike plus swinging strike percentage, it's Blake Snell, Steven Strasburg, Garrett Cole, Derek Holland, Carlos Carrasco, Matt Boyd. So, I mean, he's sixth amongst those pitchers, just ahead of Castillo, Sale, Scherzer, Caleb Smith. I mean, really, really, really good at getting called strikes plus swinging strikes. The strikeout stuff I think is legit. It's obviously a really, really tough matchup against Houston. For me to get to Boyd on this particular slate, Houston would have to be getting a ton of ownership, which it's possible. And if that happens, then I'd be happy to go to Boyd. But I don't really want to get to him if I'm not getting leverage on the field, just because the matchup is so difficult. But I mean, all you have to do is go back to his last start against the Angels, who have the lowest strikeout percentage in baseball against lefties and against righties. And he went out and 6 strikeouts in 6 innings and was just really, really good. So I do buy into him. It's just, again, taking guys against Houston is really scary.
Yeah, I mean, if he was priced way down, or like you said, the Astros bats were going to be one of the highest owned stacks, and they probably, I wonder if they will be. Trying to see,
I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, we don't have the top stack percentage chart, which is free right now. We don't have that updated as of now, but once that gets updated, that's going to decide for me basically what I do with Boyd. If it looks like the Astros are coming in over-owned, I'd rather get even more leverage and play a little bit of Boyd at what I would expect to be low ownership across, well, especially DK and Yahoo. I don't know if I'm getting to $9,900 Boyd on FanDuel.
Yeah, that's totally different.
Yeah, especially one pitcher as well. What was I saying? What about, I mean, do you like these Houston bats, any in particular against Boyd?
So I do, and it's not because of Boyd. It's because of the Detroit bullpen. With how much good or quality pitching there is on this slate, and guys that you don't really like taking bats against. I mean, you have Lopez, you have Kingham as two guys that are relatively likely to suck relative to the field, but that's really two pitchers on this slate that you're like actively targeting against. Detroit has a bad bullpen, and Houston just has such good hitters that even though I really like Boyd, as long as like right now we have Houston, Alex Bregman on DraftKings is the highest projected Houston bat at 17%.
Okay.
Everyone else, lower than that. So very reasonable ownership projections, at least right now on Houston. And you'd be getting a team that just has absolutely insane numbers against left-handed, well, against all pitching, but also against left-handed pitching over the last few years. But a Detroit bullpen that ranks in the bottom 10 in xFIP this year. And so it's just if they can somehow get to Boyd, then you get upside throughout the game. And I think that this slate probably is won or lost based on which bullpen just implodes.
Sure, that makes sense. Did we talk about Detroit bats at all against Peacock? I think I might have.
No, we didn't. But I do like Kristen Stewart in particular. He very rarely picks up much ownership because I think that people just kind of overlook him because they don't stack Detroit that often, so he doesn't end up in their lineups for that reason. And he's on Detroit, so you don't really hear a whole lot about their offense. But this is a guy that projects for over 200 ISO. He has very, very good minor league numbers. He has like a 250 ISO against right-handed pitching since debuting last season. So, obviously a small sample size, but the numbers have been there. He's got a ton of power, and Peacock does struggle with left-handed power. He's very reasonably priced, gets you a ton of upside at that price point. So I like Kristen Stewart a lot in particular.
Okay. Yeah, I like him. I like the call as well. If you go to the Osmo.com or the Osmo _com Twitter account, you can see we tweeted out 48 minutes ago that the MLB ownership projections on the site are actually free today. So that's our free premium content for the day. So if you guys want to see the numbers we're referring to when we're talking about ownership, you can look at those right now and for the duration of the slate. So I think that's probably the best tool we have, and I would take advantage of that. If you're not a premium member, go check those out today. I'm sure you'll be a better player than if you do not check on them. So, we ready to move on from this one?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go to the Angels and the Twins. We have Tyler Skaggs going up against Jose Barrios. 4.2 implied total for the Angels, 4.9 for the Twins. Do you have any interest in Skaggs or, better yet, Jose Barrios here? 9,400 on DK.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so our DraftKings ownership projections right now, you have, when you look at DraftKings pricing, you have Barrios at 9,400, you have Nola at 92, you have Bieber at 9,000. Nola right now projected for 41% ownership, Bieber for 36, Barrios for 11. I know that the Angels are a very, very difficult strikeout matchup, but Barrios is also priced down. Like, this is a pitcher who, if the Angels struck out more, I think would be over 10K. He's over a 10K pitcher. he has been much better at home throughout his entire career for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, but the strikeout percentage goes way up, the walk percentage goes way down, the WOBA goes down, the home runs allowed goes down. Everything's been much better for him at home. If those ownerships hold that way, I am more than happy to get Berrios at the same price tag for a fraction of the ownership of Nola. When Nola, it's not like Nola's facing the Marlins or something. He's facing the Brewers. He can very easily struggle. And, Berrios just has the kind of stuff where if he's on, he can pick up strikeouts against anyone. So I think from an ownership standpoint, he's a pretty interesting option.
Yeah, that's the price tag that really stuck out to me on DraftKings. And then the ownership on DraftKings and Yahoo, he's just at 5% on Yahoo. And he's not maybe priced down as much. But I think we're looking at it like he's going to be kind of the forgotten option in this range across all the sites. So definitely interested in Berrios. I don't want to target a bunch of Angels bats against him. Maybe Ohtani. Obviously Trout is always in play, but it's not like a spot where I'm like, yeah, I got to jam in all the Mike Trout against Berrios at home. Any bats you're looking at on the Angel side against Berrios?
Ohtani, really like the price tag. He's 4,100 on DraftKings, 35 on FanDuel. He is 18 on Yahoo. Yahoo maybe the least appealing out of those three, but Ohtani's a really, really good hitter, and I feel like it goes overlooked because, for one, he's been injured. But even last year, people just didn't roster him because if you looked at his game logs, he was taking so many days off. You got a lot of zeros in there and stuff, but he's really, really good. And, I obviously believe in Berrios, but you're just getting so much power and such a good hitter at a reasonable price tag. So Ohtani would be the one that really stands out to me. Like you said, obviously Mike Trout against anyone is a perfectly good play, but Ohtani at a discount is really nice. And doubling back to Berrios, Yahoo and DraftKings, I like him. I don't see the need to pay more money for him on FanDuel than anyone else.
Yep, that makes sense. How about these Twins bats versus Skaggs? The Twins, right now, they're at the second highest implied total on the slate behind Arizona. Arizona's total has gone up a little bit since last night, but they're right around the top. Once again, this new look Twins team, what are you doing with them here against Skaggs?
It's a tough spot for me because I do believe in Skaggs as a pitcher. I think he's got decent stuff. Since last year, just a 135 expected ISO allowed to righties. Nelson Cruz questionable for this game. I guess got banged up yesterday. I didn't see what happened, but if he's not in the lineup, you do lose a right-handed power bat there, and the Twins are expensive. So it's tough because I don't think Skaggs is quite as good as some other pitchers on the slate, but I think he's better than guys like Lopez and Nick Kingham. So I don't know, and Minnesota's expensive. So, Marwin Gonzalez offers you some value. He's been really bad this year, but he's probably about a league average hitter. Over the last few years, I think he's right around 100 WRC plus, except for that one outlier season where he was phenomenal for Houston. But at, a really cheap price tag, I think that he's fine. It's just that, and CJ Cron is priced affordably. He's put up really good numbers against lefties over the last few years. But, looking at guys like Polanco and then the lefties with Rosario and, like Kepler, I don't really love getting to those guys, especially with Polanco at an expensive price tag.
All right. I think I agree with you. I did not see Cruz's questionable tag, but now I'm seeing it now that you bring it up. He's only 4,500 on DraftKings. That would be a guy that sticks out to me quite a bit if he does indeed get in the lineup for this game. Marwin's a guy that he always grades out well because, like you mentioned, he is closer to a league average hitter than what he's been this year. So I always end up getting him at 20% on my crunches before I rank all my lineups and stuff. So he's just a guy that personally I don't really like much. He has not made me any money this season, but he's 3,300 on DK. And if you are stacking up the Twins, which I don't really have a problem with, that's probably going to be a guy that I play. And then $2,600 on FanDuel for Marwin. So you're basically just punting there if he's going to be in the fifth spot. Talked about Berrios, talked about Skaggs. Do you have any interest in playing Skaggs at all against the Twins? They've been really, really good against lefties.
Yeah, not really. I mean, it's a 6-game slate, so clearly might get him in some lineups, but I think I would rather take a chance on Freddie Peralta than Skaggs. I think that there's at least some more strikeout upside in the Philadelphia lineup than the Minnesota lineup.
Yeah.
But, it's the thing is that the like 7 to 8K price range is pretty thin. You're talking about guys like Kikuchi or Nick Kingham, Reynaldo Lopez. So Skaggs is appealing there. It's just that I don't think I'm going to really need to get there because even if you're rostering 2 pitchers at 9K, on DraftKings, you're spending $18,000. That leaves you plenty of money to spend on hitters, and it's not like there's an expensive offense that like you have to be jamming in today. So I think that I'll be able to keep most of my pitcher exposure to guys that I actually want.
Is Astudillo supposed to play today? Do you know?
He played yesterday.
Okay.
Not sure.
Yeah.
But he does make a huge difference
Yeah.
as far as projected strikeouts goes.
Yeah, I'm not seeing him in one of the projected lineups. On our projected lineup on the site, which I think we just take the last lineup versus the same-handed pitcher, he was batting leadoff. So I know he's a guy that you hate targeting against. He makes a huge difference for you. So, yeah, something to keep an eye on if Astudillo is in the lineup. Ready to move on here?
Yeah, if Cruz is out, I would think that increases the chance of Astudillo being in there too, just because they'll need a DH, so
Sure.
they can play someone there.
All right. Cleveland and Chicago, the White Sox, we have a 4.7 implied total for Cleveland, 3.9 for Chicago here. Shane Bieber, chalky Shane Bieber, going up against Reynaldo Lopez. 52 degrees here. Bieber, a big favorite, but going to be heavily owned, it looks like, at least as of now. What are you looking at in this game from the pitching side?
I like Bieber a lot. There's tons of strikeouts in the Chicago lineup, and I just believe in Bieber being a good pitcher. He's 22nd in called strike plus swinging strike percentage this season. He has had some issues with left-handed power in the past. 205 expected ISO to lefties since last season. 200 this season. So, if you wanted to look to guys like Yohan Moncada and Yonder Alonso in particular, I think that they are both really good leverage plays against Bieber. But in general, he's just someone that I believe in. He has really good command, really good control, doesn't walk guys. As I mentioned, gets a lot of called strikes plus the swinging strikes that he gets, and Chicago strikes out a lot. So it's not – I think the spot's a little bit scarier than most people probably will give it credit for, just because Chicago does have power. But it's a lineup that I think he probably picks up enough strikeouts to overcome, a solo home run or two. So I do like Bieber quite a bit.
Is he still having problems with lefty power? I know that was something that I targeted against him last year quite a bit. He's striking out.
So this year he's allowed a 143 actual ISO to lefties, but his expected ISO is 200. Oh. 284 pitches thrown to lefties. The fastball has a 270 expected ISO. His curveball is at 324. Those are the two pitches he throws the most to lefties. So I do expect there to be some regression in his power numbers allowed to lefties, and that's why I think that Moncada and Alonso are really good leverage plays against them.
Yeah, Alonso at just $3,400, probably one of the better values on the slate, and gets you extra leverage, assuming Bieber is going to be 30+% owned, which is what we have him right now on DK. On FanDuel, man, all these White Sox in the middle of the order are super cheap. Alonso $2,500, Castillo $2,200, Tilson, Delmonico $2,600, Yolmer Sanchez $2,200. So probably easier to get a little bit of leverage for cheap on FanDuel over there. What about Reynaldo Lopez versus these Cleveland bats? I know Cleveland has some pretty poor numbers versus righties so far this season, but with Lindor returning recently, do you think they're going to start to turn it around a little bit?
Yeah, I think they will, especially because it's not like – it's not the scariest lineup. They've had better lineups in recent years, but it's not like it's a terrible lineup either. Jose Ramirez has been awful this year, but he's another one where we have a track record of what he is, and I'm going to assume that he gets back to being a well above average hitter. Lindor, like you said, is back in the lineup. Kipnis is fine. Santana's a good enough hitter. Jake Bauers at least has potential. Like it's not the same lineup, but it does still have plenty of left-handed power. And that's really scary for Lopez. If you go back to last season, he has a 12.5% swinging strike percentage to righties, but it's only 8.5% to lefties. An expected ISO over 200 to lefties. This year so far, 240 expected ISO to lefties. I think that Cleveland's in one of the better spots on the slate, because I do think that while Lopez does have strikeout upside, and he's someone that I will roster on some slates just for that reason, I do think that he's probably the worst, if not the second worst pitcher on this slate. And Cleveland, has a ton of lefties that do have some power. You have some reasonable price tags on guys like Gonzalez and Jake Bauers to go along with Ramirez and Lindor. Ramirez also, priced down because he's been so bad this year. So I think it's a Cleveland team that's affordable. They're in one of the better spots, facing one of the worst starting pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, just looking at Reynaldo Lopez's game logs from like a swinging strike perspective. First 3 starts, 6.8%, 7.5%, 7.7%. Next 4 against KC, Detroit twice, then Boston. 11.5, 13.3, 19.1, 14.3, and then last start versus these same Cleveland Bats, 7.6%. So, like, you look at the season numbers, 11.2% swinging strike percentage. That's pretty solid for Reynaldo Lopez, but under 25% chase rate. I don't know. I think I agree with you. I don't think he's that great of a pitcher, despite what some of these starts might say. So I am looking more on the Cleveland bat side of this right now. I'll be playing a lot of Ramirez and Lindor like I always do against righties and against lefties, really. But those guys are actually really cheap on Yahoo. Lindor, under $20. Jose Ramirez at 16, Santana 18, Cargo $10, Bowers 15. So I like the Cleveland stack quite a bit on Yahoo. Any other site specific stuff you're seeing? Anything that sticks out to you?
We talked about Yonder Alonso being cheap. Yahoo, he's $10 also. So that's just, he's basically free across the board no matter what site you're playing.
Yeah, a lot of value in this game. So if Bieber, like if these ownerships were to stick throughout the day, where would Bieber rank, or do you think he would rank as far as your highest exposed pitchers on DraftKings?
He's kind of like Nola to me, where I think that if these ownerships hold, I probably come in somewhere around the field, maybe a little bit over on Bieber, just because I think that it is a reasonably favorable matchup overall. But it just comes back to, I think that I would like to get Berrios at like 30% of the ownership.
Yeah, and then just kind of another general question. Let's say that Nola, Ray, and Bieber are the highest owned pitchers on the slate. They continue to be that. Which stack against one of those guys would be your favorite kind of leverage play if they're all around this 30 to 40% range?
Yeah, I think it would either be Chicago or Milwaukee. It will depend on the lineups that we get from both. But I think that when you consider price, also probably Chicago, just because you do have the two cheap. Well, you have Yonder Alonso, who's cheap. Moncada's not, but 2 left-handed power bats there, and then just pretty good hitters in Abreu, Castillo. You can throw Tim Anderson in there, even though he's really expensive. It's really close though, because Milwaukee should be so good. But I think that I would lean towards Chicago.
Yeah, I think I would lean Chicago as well. But yeah, it's gonna be a close one, and I'm sure the ownerships will get shaken around a little bit by the time we get to lock. All right, let's go to the Pirates and the Diamondbacks. We have Nick Kingham on the mound against Robbie Ray. 4 implied total for the Pirates, 5.1 for Ray. And the Diamondbacks, looks like the roof is going to be open here, 90 degrees in Arizona. What are you looking at for pitching here? $8,800 Robbie Ray on DraftKings. What are you doing with that? Oh, no, on FanDuel, sorry.
88 on FanDuel.
Yeah. 10K on DraftKings.
So I really like the Robbie Ray price tag on FanDuel. Obviously, that really stands out. On DraftKings, it's fine. Like, I haven't projected as my second highest pitcher in raw points, but he's just more expensive over there than every pitcher on the slate. And the Pirates, they're not a bad matchup. They're not a great matchup in terms of strikeouts. The thing that scares me, though, is that Ray has pretty much always struggled more at home. And it makes sense because, obviously, before the humidor, you got more power there. But even last year when they put the humidor in, he had talked about expecting it to make a difference for him because he could get a better grip on the ball and control it better at home. But we didn't really see that play out. We still saw him walk a lot of guys and kind of struggle at Chase Field. So it's a spot where I'm really scared to pay all the way up for him. Obviously the strikeout upside is there, but I think that the strikeout upside is there for a lot of pitchers on this slate. So I would probably, if ownership stayed the same, I would expect that I get more Nola and more Bieber than Ray, with them being basically all the same ownership.
Okay. I think Ray would be my number 1 guy, number 2 at the very least, because just looking at these Pirates numbers versus lefties, the active roster for the season, I know we're still in a small sample, but they have the lowest on-base percentage, the second lowest ISO, the lowest WRC plus, and the second highest K rate versus lefties so far this season. Lowest walk rate as well. So versus righties, it's a completely different story for the Pirates. They're a much tougher strikeout matchup. But do you buy into this 28.5% K rate versus lefties for them?
I don't know that I would expect it to be that high, but I mean, if you think about the hitters in the lineup, like Polanco is one of the tougher outs. He's a lefty. Frazier's a lefty. So I mean, those two guys, you would expect to be worse in the matchup against lefties. But I do think that Josh Bell's made improvements this year. Not sure that carries over to the right side of the plate or not. He is obviously a switch hitter, but he seems like a completely different hitter this year. So he scares me a little bit. I have a lot of respect for Starling Marte. Melky Cabrera is a tough strikeout. Cervelli can be a tough strikeout. I don't know that they're that bad. I would expect them to be worse against lefties than righties, though.
Okay. Kingham, a guy who has not gone over 4 innings so far this season. He's just made one start. That was the 4-inning game. I don't know what I want to do with Kingham. I mean, he's 6,500 on DK. I wouldn't be looking at him on FanDuel. I don't think that's really necessary on this slate with all these other solid pitching options. But a super priced up Arizona team, are you looking to get leverage at all with Kingham here?
It's tough because he has decent strikeout stuff, but he has really struggled with lefties since coming to the majors. Since last year, a 247 expected WOBA and a 370 expected WOBA, 247 expected ISO to lefties. Chase Field with the roof open, I think it obviously makes it a better place to hit as well. I don't think it'll be really that necessary to get down to Kingham, and I think you probably get higher ownership on the Indians than the Diamondbacks because of their prices. So if I did need to get to a pitcher that I think has strikeout upside, but that I'm not really confident in their matchup, I think I'd rather just get to Reynaldo Lopez because I think there will be more leverage there, and I think the risk factor is about the same.
Sure, that makes sense. On FanDuel, if Dyson leads off, $2,800 over there. Adam Jones, $3,300. Like, those are some better prices than what we're seeing on DK. But yeah, spending up to be contrarian on DK against a guy who we don't think is great in Kingham, I think not a bad idea. The question is, can you get to this Diamondback stack in like a 5-man with some quality pitching options? So I guess that's something we can see if we go through crunches at the end. But definitely interested there in some of the guys you mentioned. You did mention some of the Pittsburgh bats. Are you targeting any guy heavily against Ray here?
Probably not. It's like my relative disinterest in Ray has more to do with him just being more expensive than all the other pitchers. It's not that I expect a bad start from him. Okay. Like if Starling Marte were cheaper, I'd have some interest, but these guys are not discounted for the price or for the matchup. Like you're talking about Marte at 4,700 on DraftKings and Josh Bell at 5K. That just seems entirely unnecessary.
Yeah, wow, 5K. For Bell.
Francisco Cervelli at 2,800, I'm sure I'll get to.
And $7 on Yahoo. He was the one guy that stuck out a little bit, but don't love targeting bats against Ray, even when he's going to be chalky on this slate, especially not these Pirates bats. All right, let's move it on to the last game. We've got Oakland and Seattle, 4.2 implied total for Oakland, 4.4 for Seattle. Mike fires, and you say Kikuchi? Is that how you say his name? Kikuchi?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way I've heard it pronounced. So we're going to go with that. Not the best pitching options here, in my opinion, but maybe you're seeing something different. Do you want to target either of these guys tonight on any site?
No, I just don't think they're going to end up being that necessary. I think there's enough value hitting that even if you're taking a more expensive stack, you probably can get away with going to, like a Peacock plus, Bieber or something like that. They're not that expensive. So I don't think that you'll need to get to these guys all that much. Kikuchi's been fine this year as far as allowing or limiting damage against him. Not a high strikeout guy, just an 8% swinging strike rate to righties. Did you see the pictures of him in that start against the Yankees with the gallon of pine tar on his hat?
No.
Oh yeah, you should look that up at some point. But yeah, he had like literally a gallon of pine tar just on the bill of his hat, and was going to it like every pitch. Had a really good start, but it'll be interesting to see if he does it again since he got so much attention last time. but a lot of right-handed power in the Oakland lineup. A lot of reasonably priced right-handed power too. With Chapman, Piscotty, Davis back in there, Chad Pinder. These guys, on DraftKings, the most expensive hitter on Oakland is Matt Chapman at 4,400. If you go over to Yahoo, you get basically the same thing, like Chris Davis 13, Piscotty 14, Pinder's 10. I would just much rather be getting to Oakland power here than Kikuchi because he doesn't miss bats and you just have so much power in the Oakland lineup.
Yeah, so I pulled it up. That is, he's not even trying to hide it at that point.
Right.
So
yeah.
what?
Yeah, he had like a really good outing too, and like the Yankees were asked about it after the game, and they were just like, it doesn't matter.
Isn't that like grounds for throwing a guy out, or is that an old school thing?
If the Yankees had called attention to it, they would have ejected him probably. But every pitcher does it in some way, and basically, like then the Mariners would have just taken the Yankees pitcher's glove or something like that. And it's kind of, I don't know, like there's always like stuff about it on Twitter too, because people are always like, oh, it's against the rules. But most hitters are like, I'd rather them use it because I want them to have an idea where the ball's going when they throw it. So it's kind of one of those things everyone does it and everyone knows it except for like Trevor Bauer, but you aren't supposed to make it like blatantly obvious.
Yeah. I've seen guys like have it on the wrist or whatever, or on the inside of the glove, but and it's like a little amount that it's just his entire bill of his hat is just covered with it.
Right. Yeah. Like the most recent one I remember getting ejected was Pineda when he had like an entire like glob of it on his neck.
Yeah. Seems risky, but I guess if he didn't get kicked out, I don't know why he wouldn't go to it again. So
yeah, I feel like he'll hide it better today just because like it would be so surprising if the A's were just like, yeah, whatever, we're cool with it.
Is he he's coming over from Japan, is that right? So
yeah, I think it was Japan,
maybe there's
it was Japan.
Less rules against that or something. I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty egregious.
That's crazy. No, I did not see that. That's pretty funny though. Chris Davis at $13 on Yahoo. Some of these prices against Kikuchi on Yahoo are pretty crazy. All these guys under $20. Chapman, Piscotty at 14, Davis 13, Pinder 10, Olsen lefty for 13, Laureano for 11, and then Semien leading off at just 16. So I actually like the Oakland stack quite a bit on Yahoo, and then they're cheap on DK as well. So that's probably going to be the bats I'm mostly targeting here. What about Fires at 8K? Did you talk about him? I was looking that up, so my bad if I missed that.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I don't really want to get to him either. He obviously is coming off a no-hitter, but
yeah, that's right.
He's still Mike Fires. He's whatever. Like he's a fly ball pitcher. It's a park that is reasonably good for fly ball pitchers. But there is a lot of power in the Seattle lineup. I like getting them at least for one-offs. You have some reasonable price tags on guys like Encarnacion's 3,900 on FanDuel, Mitch Haniger at 3,600. Like those are guys that have a lot of power from the right side, and Fires does give up power to righties. 208 expected ISO this year. He's had issues with it in the past as well. You get them, 4,800 for Encarnacion on DraftKings, 45 for Haniger. Jay Bruce is 44 from the left side. It's not so much a spot that I necessarily want the full stack, but there's just so much power against a guy that gives up fly balls and doesn't get a lot of swings and misses that there's a pretty good chance, one or two of those get out of the park.
Yeah, don't necessarily love targeting bats in Seattle, but it is decent weather, near 70 degrees compared to some of the other spots. Chicago, it's 52. I guess it's around 70 here in Minneapolis, but Detroit at 51. So not too bad of hitting weather relative to some of these other spots on the slate. What was I going to mention? Fires game logs. You look at his swinging strike rate, 7.6% for the season. He has one start with an over 8.9% swinging strike rate. Just a guy that should not be throwing no-hitters, but he's done it twice in his career, which is crazy to think about. I don't know. I have no issue targeting against Fires. Maybe some people will get away from him because they think he's the second coming or something. I have no idea, but I like bats on both sides in this game.
Also, a non-zero chance that he's less effective than usual. He did get an extra day of rest, but he threw 131 pitches in that no-hitter.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get to playing him, but I mean, maybe they limit him because of that. Was it Derek Holland a couple years ago, or who was it that was threw like 140 and didn't even get?
Edwin Jackson.
Oh, Jackson.
In his no hitter, he walked like 7 guys or something.
It's outrageous.
When he was with the Diamondbacks like 10 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, man, I swear there was one a couple years ago that was like they were at 130 through 7, and he like came back out for the 8th inning, and it was like ridiculous. Maybe
It might have been. That actually sounds kind of familiar now that you mentioned it.
I don't know. I gotta look
this
this up now. Derek Holland. I can't even remember who it was. No, maybe it wasn't Holland. I don't know. I'm gonna look this up and find this, or someone in chat find this for me, because now I gotta figure out who it was and what the actual pitch count was. All right. Do you have anything else on this game or anything else about the slate in general before we start taking a look at crunches?
No.
All right, cool. Quick show here. That's what happens when there's only 6 games, I suppose.
And no Josh.
Yeah, no Josh. All right, so I limited all the stacks in the crunch just to see what we can get with different combos of teams. Is there any combo that you want to look at? Just see what kind of fits together, or any team?
I guess like, yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't even have a favorite stack on this. Like,
yeah, I mean, we got a bunch of Houston, we got basically everyone. So let's look at one of these like leverage stacks. Man, we got no White Sox. I just used the Fantasy Cruncher projections. We don't have the rankings and projections updated on the site just yet, but that's what I'll plug in once it gets closer to lock. A bunch of Angels Fantasy Cruncher projections like the Angels. How about Oakland? This is one we just talked about.
yeah,
I just ran 4 4s, and we got a bunch of Reynaldo Lopez for some reason, but we've got a Barrios Bieber with Cervelli, Olsen, Frazier, Chapman, Semien, Marte, Polanco, Piscotty. So the 4-man against Ray with a 4-man Oakland stack. We have Nola Lopez with Realmuto, Hoskins, Harper, McCutchen with a 4-man Oakland Profar, Chapman, Semien, Chris Davis. Ooh, this one I like actually a lot. Barrios, don't love Lopez, but Garver, Cron, Rosario, Nelson Cruz, Pinder, Chapman, Semien, Piscotty.
yeah, it's a solid one. Lot of home run upside there, and you just hope that, I really don't hate getting the Lopez as an SP2 if like you have to in lineups, because he does at least have that strikeout upside, and because I expect Cleveland to be so popular. So while that is a pretty ugly part of that lineup, it at least does give you some step toward winning a tournament if it goes the right way.
Right. With Barrios, it's actually not too difficult to fit him in. Not too difficult to fit him in on DK. We got one Robbie Ray out of 150, so I think that's pretty telling. People just, I don't think, are going to want to pay that much up for Ray when you have Nola and some of these other guys that are right below him. Like, I think Ray probably drops out of the 30 to 40% range if one of these guys does by lock. I just don't see people paying $10K for him when you can get a bunch of cheaper guys that are going to project around the same.
Right.
We got Barrios, Lopez again with Realmuto, Segura, McCutchen, Herrera, and then a 4-man Astro stack, Gurriel, Diaz, Bregman, and Springer. I don't know if Diaz is going to be in the lineup, but man, you can basically do whatever you want if you're willing to forego like 1 or 2 of the top hitters in the stack. So,
yep.
Has pricing been really soft lately on DK?
What was that?
Has pricing been soft on DK lately? Have you noticed that at all?
Not really, but it's been weird because like a lot of the times the expensive, kind of like today, like the good pitching has been underpriced by like $500 to $800, and so it makes it so you can get basically like what you were saying. Like I was able to get, yesterday I was able to get a bunch of like really good Astro stacks if I just didn't play Springer, which obviously sucks. But I was still able to get like Bregman and all the other guys that I would want. It's been, I mean, still tighter than FanDuel, but it's been soft in like spots. But then you also get like really expensive hitters like Springer at 5,800, and the Diamondbacks today and stuff like that. So it's been kind of weird.
Yeah, no kidding. What were you gonna ask if we got some of?
Oh, did we get any Diamondback stacks?
Diamondback stacks? Yes,
Yeah.
I believe we did. Yeah, they actually almost hit the caps. So, all right, Diamondback stacks. We got Kikuchi, Lopez with 4-man Angels, 4-man Diamondbacks, Walker, Escobar, Peralta, Jones, no Trout. It's Otani, Anderson, Simmons, LaStella, and Lucroy, who all of a sudden is a good hitter, I suppose. Man, a lot of... Yeah, so the problem with these Diamondback stacks, you can see me scrolling through them here, is like, you can't get both... You can't get two guys above 9K, it's looking like. So I think they're going to be really, really low owned. Like, we got Barrios, Lopez with 4-man D-backs, 4-man Oakland, but it's not the best looking. I don't think we got one with two of the top 4 guys. Yeah, there's not one that I see where we got 2 of Barrios, Nola, Ray, and Bieber. So, I don't know. Do you like the look of that at all? Any of these? I know you're watching a little bit of delay, but...
Yeah, I can't see him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's like Peralta, Kikuchi, Lopez. Basically, Lopez, Kikuchi, or Peralta are in basically all of them. So...
Yeah, that's not great.
No, it's not. That's the sacrifice you got to make if you want to stack up some of these Diamondbacks. All right, I think that's good for today. We did about an hour. Got anything else left to say before we get on out of here?
Just that I agree with what you had said earlier, that, it always is, but ownership, especially on slates like this, plays a huge role where you have a lot of offenses that project similarly, a lot of pitching that projects similarly. You normally will still see ownership concentrate on like 1 or 2 offenses and a couple pitchers, as there's just so much groupthink, and people play projections so closely that they ignore that the fact that a pitcher is projected for 1 point more than someone else is really, really insignificant. And so that's just a spot that you really want to be aware of and look to take advantage of on slates like this, where there's no like clear cut top options.
Yep, I can't agree anymore. Ownership is huge, and it gets even more concentrated on the smaller the slate gets. Go play on Yahoo, guys. They do have some nice tournaments over there. Less rake, 12% management fee compared to 16 and even more on some of these other sites, DraftKings and FanDuel, namely. So go take advantage of the lower rake. You have a better chance to be profitable, flatter payouts, no CSV edit. You're not competing against 150 lineups. You're competing against 10 at the most. So you don't even have to put in 10. You can put in 1 or 2 and still have a chance at bringing down a 1K or 2K top prize. Good luck tonight, guys. Tune in for the deeper dive. You guys are probably going to start at 5 Eastern because it's a small slate. Adam and Laffy, and then Josh and I will be doing the Live Before Lock show. We'll be breaking it down. I'm sure we'll get a little bit off topic with the lack of games on the slate. So good luck tonight, guys, and we will be back soon.